What I found is that there was thousands, like 67,000 people have applied to work at my Amazon guy in the last 2 years. Yeah. So if you win on price today, you will lose on price tomorrow. Yeah. So if you average Amazon client will stay at my Amazon guy for 8.5 months. Most agencies are scared to reveal that number. I think my number is above average, by the way, but it might not be, right? And so with a high churn model, that means if they're only staying with me 9 months, that means I have to replace my entire clientele. I kind of reject the notion that there's a pricing battle out there. I don't have a high churn. They may not be charging enough. I was thinking to myself, well, what better way to, I've got this nice shirt on. It says us versus Amazon, right?
Versus Amazon, yeah.
And that's another brand position that's very unique because it's not me against you, other Amazon agency. It's all of us against Amazon. Don't put any expensive talent into tactical roles as an agency. You need to have all of your expensive talent to be client-facing or in an executive or leadership role. No exceptions. Long story short, I use this quad. This is how lead gen has changed over time. I think cold calling is super underrated today. I think email is harder today than it ever has been. And I also think that a lot of people have figured out how to add value prior to engaging. And it was wildly successful. Within the first 90 days of starting my agency, I was producing $43,000 in monthly reoccurring revenue. I started out as a television reporter. Then I went into e-commerce, working for education companies. Then I landed in a women's plus size clothing, and they did this thing called Amazon. I'm like, what is this?
They get like, okay, this is enough. you know what I'm talking about? Like, okay, this is enough money. I can retire on this one. So how did you keep that mindset going? Like, no, I need more.
I really think conferences are overrated. and I don't think you need to go to a conference to learn how to sell on Amazon.
Hi, Steve. How are you?
Hey, doing good. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. So would you mind introducing yourself for people who don't know you? Yeah, I doubt anyone doesn't know you, but yeah.
That's all right. Nobody actually cares who I am. They just care what I say. So that's okay. But I'm the founder of My Amazon Guy. We're a 400 brand agency, perhaps the largest Amazon agency in the world. We have over 500 employees around the world as well to help our clients. And so I founded it about 6 years ago. I've been selling on the Amazon platform for over a decade. And I miss the days when you could advertise rice cookers for 2 cents a click at the top of Amazon, suffice it to say. So that's who I am.
Awesome. So I'm going to dive right into it and ask you, so about a decade, that's like 2014. So yeah, that was pretty easy to, advertise, and especially the 2 cents click was, pretty good. But how have you seen this? The whole dynamic has changed, especially after, it actually got a little bit too much faster. The changes have started getting too much faster after COVID. Like, how do you see it, growing?
So we had a really good bump from COVID. It was interesting as an agency because in March of when COVID hit, I lost 30% of my whole business. Like 1 out of every 3 clients fired me in about 2 weeks. And then about 2 weeks after that, I gained 50% of my clients, new clients. And so what happened was all of the big corporate retail box stores kind of just, were like, I'm out. This Amazon thing, it was nice, but I'm cutting costs, yada, yada. And then all of these native born Amazon brands, the hustlers, the guys out of their garages and their closets, and they just started hitting hard. And so I went on that roller coaster. It was a really big roller coaster. It was very uncomfortable. I learned a lot from it. And I would rather run a boring business that's stable and has like steady growth. And that is not what an agency is. It's definitely not what I've experienced at all. Every problem that I experience running an agency can be tied back to people. It's people. You need process and you need product. But I'm telling you right now, when it comes to agencies, 90% of my focus is on people.
Yeah. Yeah, I was actually talking about it earlier, and I was saying that you have built a really good institute. My Amazon guy is great, but the institute itself and the learning academy, it's really something in itself. So, yeah, how did you get started on that? Because that's a headache in itself, especially when you are getting the hustlers. That's a whole different question that I'm going to ask you later. But yeah,
Sure.
the first thing is how did you? Yeah.
So I like to joke that I actually run an education company that happens to be an agency. And so with that brand position in mind, no other agency is making that claim, right? So I have a unique
Yeah.
value prop. And what I found is that there's thousands, like 67,000 people have applied to work at my Amazon guy in the last 2 years. And so I realized that there was this huge opportunity, and we launched Mag School almost 2 years ago to the day, by the way. And so
Nice.
we decided, we need to help train the next crop of Amazon sellers. We need to train the next crop of virtual assistants and the people that support these Amazon businesses. And so we created Mag School. We gave certificates out to help people, and we wrote all the curriculum from scratch. We're like, we're going to do exactly what our own employees need. And then we use it as an onboarding tool now. Right? Like if you get a job at my Amazon guy, you have to complete 3 or 4 of these courses before you even start with us. And it's just a great learning experience, right? You can't go to college to learn how to sell on Amazon. There's no degree in selling on Amazon. So certificates, 4 hours, 8-hour investment, some of the courses a little longer than others, can allow you to prove your competency. And by proving the knowledge that you possess, that makes you sellable to the community. And since my Amazon guy has a world-renowned, recognized brand, attaching those certificates have helped people get jobs. And so I was like, man, I can't hire 67,000 people yet. I want to, but I can't today. Right? And so I needed to help the 66,500 people that I haven't hired yet. And that was my way of doing that. And it's been a wildly successful program. We've had thousands of students come through and take it. And we've embraced education from day one. I'll tell you a second thing we did is we started creating standard operating procedures, or SOPs. And we started to sell those to the community as well. And what I found, though, is that about 40% of the people who bought my SOPs were agencies. And so if agencies were now my customer, and I was thinking to myself, well, what better way I've got this nice shirt on. It says us versus Amazon. Right?
Versus Amazon, yeah.
and that's another brand position that's very unique, because it's not me against you, other Amazon agency. It's all of us against Amazon. Therefore, I can sell all of my education materials to you. You can then teach and use them and license them out to your own people. And then you are better at attacking Amazon too. And it's all of us learning together to attack Amazon.
Yeah, that's a pretty awesome concept. I'm gonna go back a little bit and ask you the most important question is that when you have corporate clients, those are usually very steady clients. I have worked with corporate a bit. So those people don't check the reports, as much as the hustlers do.
So what you're saying is the hustlers are harder to maintain as clients, and that would be yes.
Yeah. So how was that transition for you? Because COVID itself was a very stressful period, because as human beings, we were going through a rough transition where we actually, one day we couldn't go out, and then, we didn't know if we are going to go out ever again or not. And then what you see is that, your whole business has taken a shift, and now you have a person who checks the Amazon advertising console every day and every hour, and he's like, no, it's 1.9 ROAS, now it's 2.5 ROAS, what should I do or what should I not do? So how did you maintain that, and how did you manage that?
Well, to be honest, agencies have a high churn model, especially in the Amazon space, right? So I've had Google clients for PPC on AdWords. I've had SEO clients, and I got to tell you, they're way more sticky than an Amazon client is. So the average Amazon client will stay at my Amazon guy for 8.5 months. Most agencies are scared to reveal that number. I think my number is above average, by the way, but it might not be, right? And so with a high churn model, that means if they're only staying with me 9 months, that means I have to replace my entire clientele once a year. And that means you need to have a good acquisition model. right? Now,
Yeah.
for those that don't have a high churn, they may not be charging enough, right?
Yeah.
So there's always a plus or a minus or a drawback to some of these scenarios. So if you haven't lost a client in 2 years, chances are you're not charging enough, and they're taking advantage of you, right? But if you have a high churn model, and 40% of the clients that fire me at some point go out of business within 2 years. I've gone back and we've researched that that's an actual stat, and so it's just interesting that the financial capacity of the brands we work with is tenable, right? Just like in the restaurant world, this is specific in the United States, could be different elsewhere, but in the United States, if for every 3 restaurants that are opened, only one of them will survive past 2
Yeah.
years. And so Amazon sellers, it's pretty much the same stat as a restaurant business in the United States. The biggest difference is, though, is it takes $250,000 to start a restaurant, and it takes like $15,000 or way less to start an Amazon business. So which of the two are you going to pick? Obviously, I'm biased, and I'd say go with Amazon. But it's still not easy. It's not passive income. If a 60-year-old was listening to this looking for a retirement plan, I'd say don't hire me. That's not the right fit. But for the people who can build a brand, know you can't pull a profit out in the first year or two, and are willing to invest, it's a great fit.
Yep. Yeah, makes a lot of sense. I'm gonna go back again and ask you, like you said, if your clients are not firing you after in 2 years or in 1 year, you are charging less. So would you mind explaining a little bit more on that? Because, a lot of agency owners listen to this podcast. And yes, I have seen that, people have been, fighting a little bit downward. So yeah, you used to have agencies that would charge, at least four figure for Amazon clients. And now I think it has gone down to 3 figures. And yeah, I'm afraid it's going to go down to, 2 figures. So yeah.
So help me understand what you want me to talk about, though. Give me a little bit more meat to that question.
So what you have after COVID, what you have seen is that what I have seen is that the number of agencies has grown a lot. So it's gone up, and now there is a pricing battle going on between agencies as well. So what would you advise to the agency owners, as compared to what's your take on that? Yeah.
Yeah. So if you win on price today, you will lose on price tomorrow. So keep that.
That's a good one. That's a good one. That's a really good one.
I don't actually typically lose to another agency when I do a deal. I would say only about maybe 3 out of 100 pitches that we send out will it be even competing with another agency. About 1 out of 2 that I'm pitching to have never even used an agency before. So I kind of reject the notion that there's a pricing battle out there. I think that the environment that we're all in together right now is so new. It's completely wild, wild west today. Now, in the next 10 years, I do think it will get commoditized. But for agencies that are in the Google space, like a website PPC space, Facebook or whatnot, there's no such thing as a unicorn in that category, right? There's no such thing as a unicorn agency. They're all horses, right? In our space, more of us are unicorns than horses. And so what I mean by that is our model is so complicated, so new, so dynamic that it's not commoditized yet. And take my SEO phases as a good case example of this. Right? Nobody was talking about Amazon SEO like I have before I started talking about it. And now we've seen dozens and dozens of other agencies copy my concept of SEO phases. I was first to market with it. You could go onto random agency pages, and now they have replicated SEO phases. I was the first to talk about how you never set and forget it. You got to rotate it. Alt text, A+ content indexes, the byte versus character conversation. Like, I was first to market on all of that stuff. We are still going to have conversations like that every single year for the next 10 years. Amazon is changing so rapidly. It's so dynamic. And what worked yesterday is not going to work tomorrow. So because of that, I don't think it's a pricing competition. Now, a consultant or boutique, they might be charging $1,500, $2,000 for something that I might charge twice as much for. That's a fact. Yeah, that's a fact. But the difference is, I'll give people a few pieces of advice. Number one, don't put any expensive talent into tactical roles as an agency. You need to have all of your expensive talent to be client facing or in an executive or leadership role. No exceptions to this. That means anybody who doesn't have to get on a phone call with the client should be outsourced or as lowest cost labor as possible. So I take advantage of that, and I think that's one of the best ways to remain profitable as an agency and to keep your prices as low as possible. But other things that you can do is try and find a good, and with an advertising only model, this probably won't apply. This will only probably apply to a full service model.
Yeah.
But I try and do a modest retainer and a modest revenue share. When I first started out, I was all retainer and no rev share. And then I would start growing these businesses to multi-million dollar figures. And I'm like, oh, I want a piece of that. And then I was like, oh, you know what I'll do? I'll just go high revenue share and low retainer. And then what would happen is I'd grow them to millions of dollars again, and then they would fire me because they didn't want to give me $20,000 checks. And I'm like, well, frick, how do I do this? Well, then I settled on the fact that if I do a modest retainer and a modest revenue share, I get the best of both worlds. My fee will still go up if I succeed, but they won't fire me because they still think I'm worth the money they pay them. And it also doesn't hurt my conversion rate when I'm trying to pitch them to begin with because it's a modest amount. And so that's kind of one of the best ways I find to compete against the pricing. But last thought I'll share there is you need to win those deals based on a value proposition. Why should I hire you? Should be a lot more easy you need to be easy to explain that, but also unique in the sense that you won't give the same answer the other 10 agencies will give. I don't know, just trust me. The proof is in the numbers. We've got all these use cases. Those are not persuasive arguments.
Yes. Makes sense. Okay. I do have a bone to pick right now, and that is, I think you should be putting money into your technical side as well. And especially if you find a talent that is, both technical and both client facing, that's something, that is very unique. But I do think that, and also what I think is that technical people should be taught to communicate with the clients. So that's kind of a thing where, a really good technical person cannot be as good as a communicator. No. But if he becomes a communicator, he can save you a lot of dollars and a lot of clients as well. Because sometimes the gap between those two, the communicator and the technical person, that increases a lot, especially when you are running a 500 people company, how do you handle that? That would be my first question. And then the second would be, why not equip the technicals with the communication skills?
Because it's a lot more difficult to do that than to hire somebody with absolutely zero experience who can communicate. It's like the class clown that you went to school with are typically the better communicators. And then the technical guy who knows how to run Excel is probably the best person to run your PPC campaigns, but they don't want to talk to another human being. They hate talking to other people, right? So running a 500-person agency is not easy. It's very difficult. And so what I chose to do is I tried to build the agency around me and my personality, right? I worked for a bunch of corporations before I started my own agency. I had a lot of corporate experience, a lot of failed startups. I'd worked for women's plus size clothing, kitchen equipment, gold and silver coins, and education models. I had seen a lot of stuff. And so I would go into these companies and within the first 10 days, I'd be like, this is exactly what we need to do. We need to go west. We need to make these changes. And then the company will be solvent. Everybody in the room would look at me and be like, who the hell are you to say these things as the new guy on the block? And that skill wasn't actually a good skill, but it was politically incorrect. I wasn't able to convince these companies typically fast enough to go about and doing the right things. I'll give you one example. I worked for a company called Atmix.com, American Precious Metals Exchange, #1 seller on eBay from a GMV standpoint in the entire world. Sells gold and silver coins. I increased their organic users by 10 million people in less than 12 months. If you put that website, apmex.com, into any SEO tool, SEMrush or otherwise, you can see my hire date. It spikes so fast. That same company, I was in the boardroom with the CEOs, the VPs, would not listen to me. And it was at that point, I was like, you know what? I need to go work for myself. So I started an agency, and I decided that I was going to hire based on merit, right? Competency and merit. And everything that I do rewards competency, merit, results, because I hated being the guy driving results at the last companies I worked for and not being listened to. So I tried to build the culture around me that was very merit focused, results oriented. And it was wildly successful. Within the first 90 days of starting my agency, I was producing $43,000 in monthly reoccurring revenue. I had to hire people out of my church, out of my community. They'd come in and work for me out of my house. Then one day I had about 8 cars parked out in my front driveway. The city marshal came by and said, you can't do this. You can't run a business out of your house in this neighborhood. And I was like, yeah, you're right. So we went remote, and I've been remote ever since, and I'll never have a physical building again. But at the end of the day, it's very difficult to run dynamic, large people, groups, and organization. And one of the solutions that I came up with was culture. And I decided I'm going to wildly attract the biggest cult following I can on these core traits: learning, teaching, tech savvy, eagerness. And I thought if I put my flag in the sand right here, it would attract the right people who would be happy to run the system how I want it run, and would show up day in and day out. And that's what worked. If you don't have a culture or a core value set that you're very public with, it's hard to attract the right people. And it's definitely impossible to run a 500-person organization without it, in my opinion.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So, to be very honest, I just want to talk about that business that you grew by 12 million. So, to be very honest, but yeah, that's pretty interesting, and that's so. You were a Google guy before, and then you moved into Amazon, or you were both at the same time?
So I started out as a television reporter. Then I went into e-commerce, working for education companies. Then I landed in a women's plus size clothing, and they did this thing called Amazon. I'm like, what is this? This was amazing. I was selling women's plus size clothing. I was one of the first sellers on the Amazon.com platform as a company. They didn't even do FBA at the time. It was all merchant fulfilled, and I couldn't convince them to do FBA at all. And the rest is history. I just went from one Amazon company to the next, selling in e-commerce, and then I started the agency and went from there. But a lot of these companies usually had a really big flaw that I couldn't personally solve. For example, Nisbets, which was the #1 UK-based restaurant equipment seller, $250 million company in GMV a year, failed in the United States. They bought a warehouse in Baltimore for $5 million and filled it to the brim. Then they started printing out newsletters and flyers and whatnot, but they used British language. They called trash cans rubbish bins and other mistakes. And so they went under, and I got laid off. And so I had to find another job. I spent a year working for Moxie Interactive, which is an agency downtown in Atlanta. And I worked on Verizon Wireless's website, and I fixed up some of their things. And so I just had a really large gambit of experience in all kinds of sectors, which is why today, when somebody asks me if I would niche an agency in a product line, I would say, no, definitely not. Be as generic as possible on product niches. However, your services need to be niched. Your services need to be very narrow and specific when you first start an agency. So whether it's PPC or full service, you got to know exactly what you're going to offer and go all in on it. Be a mile deep and an inch wide.
So that opens up another plethora of questions, but I'm going to keep that aside, and I'm going to ask you. So since you were working for so many companies, and there is this, you may have heard any entrepreneur say that, the person who does a job has killed his dream and stuff like that. So my question is, when you started working, you said that in first 90 days, you started getting like $47,000 in monthly revenues. How did you keep that momentum up until it's like $20 million, revenue? So because that is a huge, shift in mindset where you need to, keep thinking that because people like me, they get like, okay, this is enough. you know what I'm talking about? Like, okay, this is enough money, I can retire on this one. So how did you keep that mindset going? Like, no, I need more. I need to, build it up. I need to build it up because, yeah.
So high drive people, it's never enough, right? So I'm an intensely high drive person. And so for me, I was comparing myself against world renowned people like Elon Musk. And some guys like Elon are like, I just want to be useful to the world. So I have all of the same ego challenges that an Elon Musk has. I'm not crazy like him, but I absolutely relate to the guy. And so, no, I can't build a rocket. No, I can't get off the rock. And none of those things are outside of my.
I'm going to keep an eye on your acquisitions. I'll see if you buy an X or something like that.
Yeah. But at the end of the day, I think like they do. And I'm like, I want to change the world. And so for me, there's never enough, and it never will be. And I've come to terms with that. Now, from a personal standpoint, from a family standpoint, I have 5 kids. I have a happy marriage. Awesome. I've bought the big castle of a house. I've bought the nice cars. Like financially speaking, I've hit the I win button. I don't share that to brag. I share that because it helps people understand my mentality of why I'm still doing what I'm doing. Because to your credit, a lot of people would just sell the agency and go off and get on the dreamboat and call it a day. But for me, that's not what's driving me to do this, right? I want to be able to make substantial impacts and changes to the world. I want people to remember my legacy. I want the system that I'm building today to outlive me. And one of the business books that talks about that is From Good to Great. And if you want to have a great company, it needs to outlive the founder. And so there's a lot of things that propel me to do that. I want to make the world a better place, and that's why it will never be enough. Why? Because if I have 5 million today and I have 100 million tomorrow and $1 billion by the end of my life, that's a lot of change, a lot of people's lives I can affect, charity and otherwise, jobs I can create, businesses I can buy and fix. And just like Elon Musk did, he fixed up the rocket industry. He saved censorship on Twitter, and now it's called X. And he fails a lot of times too, right? He has the Cybertruck, which is in the news this past week. I mean, the amount of failures that dude has is substantial. That dude says he's either going to die the richest man that's ever lived, or he's going to be broke. And I believe him. He will. So.
Yeah, that's a pretty good one. And now the major question is, you have a 500 people company. What are the things that are needed to take it to the 1,000 people company? Because that's a huge mind shift again, that, and also the processes shift as well, because it's a whole different ball game when you are at 500 and a whole different ball game when you are at, 1,000 people. So,
So leadership is the key to running a bigger company. And every problem that my Amazon guy has, the buck must stop with me personally. I must solve the largest problems. The culture starts with me. The solutions start with me. Now, the thing that I have failed to do by 2024 is I haven't hired enough leadership to replicate me, my desires, my vision, etc. And so what's going to keep me back from going from 500 employees to 1,000 is whether I hire enough leaders. I do not believe most people can manage more than 8 direct reports at any given time. That is 8 one-on-one meetings a week, checking in on them, QAing their work, investing in them, etc. So fundamentally right now, if you look at my org chart, I have about 70 people that kind of directly report to me in one fashion or another. It's not a good thing to do. But I don't like having a sales director. I like running the sales team myself. I love doing business development. One of my best skills is marketing, but I was able to acquire Kevin Sanderson and maximizing e-commerce. And so I do have a VP of marketing, but that's not a hire I went out and chased. It just kind of happened, right? And so I do need to hire more leadership, but at the same time, I'm also very resistant to giving away my margin. I like the fact that I have a highly profitable business. And so it's a catch-22. It's like, what do? Do you invest or do you take profit? There's no wrong answer to that question. It's really just, what do you want? And by the way, that's actually the best piece of advice I'll give on today's podcast. You want to know how to grow a business? You ask customers, what do you want? Give it to them. Then ask, did you get what you wanted? And that trifecta of give and take and check in is how I've ran my entire company from day one. That's why I grew so fast. It's because I was a rabid customer fan, just like Jeff Bezos did with Amazon.com. He's like, I'm going to be the most customer-centric business in the world. I did the same thing, but with sellers on Amazon, and nobody else was helping sellers, and everybody hates Jeff Bezos, and everybody hates working on Amazon, and it's a pain in the ass, and the seller support sucks, right? The list of complaints is very long, but I care, and that's why customers hire me, right? And they see it in my videos, they see my passion, and it seeps through, and so that's why it worked very well for me.
Yeah, makes sense. Okay, now on to the last year's thing. So if you remember, like most of your following on LinkedIn or on YouTube is from Pakistan.
Absolutely.
And there were two instances. Like 2 years ago, you said that Pakistanis are hungry and these are the best people to hire from. And then within a year, that kind of changed as well. So what happened in between? Because I'm honestly curious about it, to be very honest.
So I meant what I said in both instances. So a couple years ago,
kind of still hurts, but yeah, go on.
I believe that Pakistan is the most eager country in the entire world when it comes to Amazon. And there is no close second. It is like so far ahead of everybody in desire. At the same time, there's a lot of challenges that face this labor force, and quite frankly, a lot of learning that needs to occur. And so one day, I just had enough of a certain application that was coming in, and I said, you know what, I'm going to say a few things. I created an international row. That was not a good situation. I would not do it again. I think I could have said it a lot better than the way I said it, but at the same time, there was some truth behind what I was trying to get at. And I'm sorry for those that I hurt at the time, but at the same time, I was actually the intent, even though the intent didn't come across very well, but the intent was to help, right? And I was calling a spade for what I thought it was, a spade. But let me tell you, that was probably the stupidest way of speaking I've ever had in my entire life. And for that, I was sorry and still am. But the good news is that the community still has embraced me for whatever reason, and I still help them, and that's good. And here we are today.
So I'm good. Yeah. So I'm gonna dive further into that question, because I do understand that a lot of people agreed with you as well on that thing.
Yes,
and I do see it personally as well, because I'm, a little bit integrated with the community as well. And I do understand that, a lot of people are still very hesitant to hire people from Pakistan. So I do understand the, challenges and stuff like that. But how do we overcome that? Because, as a Pakistani, and for fellow Pakistanis, I actually want to become a part of, the community in a way that, we help everyone. Yeah.
I think that's simply just going to take time, right? And I think that some of the challenges are that a lot of people who enter the Amazon space need a job. So what do you do when you need a job? You feign experience, you feign knowledge, and so that's the problem. There is still a lot of that, and there needs to be some honest transparency, right? If somebody came to me and said, "Hey, I have no experience, but here is my culture, and here is my tenacity and grit, and I love what you say, and I think I'm a culture fit," I hire that person a lot more frequently than I hire the guy that says I can do everything and just let me at it, I'll succeed, right? Another challenge that I've had is that I would rather somebody follow my processes than be the best.
Yeah.
And that's a really structural challenge, right? I have a defensive company. I'm an offensive person, but I built a defensive company, and that doesn't make a lot of sense until we break that down. But essentially, I want people that I hire to follow the Stephen Pope system, the MAG system. And it's very difficult to get that to happen if the ego gets in the way. And so I had to attract people who are willing to follow instruction, follow the process, and embrace it. And I personally found that experience sometimes got in the way of that. And so that's part of why I like being an education company, is because I get to hire and mold people from day one, and I don't have to break any bad habits. I don't have to recondition anybody. And that's just what I personally chose to do. Now, a lot of other agencies, they don't have time to teach. They don't have time to train. So they need to hire straight into experience.
Yeah, makes
So
sense.
that's, I guess that'd be the advice that I would give is just for people to give it the time that it takes for that adoption to occur. The results will speak for themselves. Nobody has to say anything if you guys end up becoming the world leader in that skill set. And when it comes to PPC, I honestly do think you guys will become that.
Thank you. That means a lot. So yeah, a lot of technical, like what I have noticed is that this side of the region does have, a unique ability for technical stuff. So PPC
Yes,
and, coding and stuff like that.
very
So
technical.
that is pretty good for us. So yeah, but yeah, you are also right in the way that a lot of things have been happening in our side where people have been kind of uh, modifying the resumes and stuff like that. So yeah, that kind of happens. But yeah,
And that's not
uh,
unique. That's not unique to any one country. Let's be clear.
yeah,
But because of the
yeah,
volume and the
yeah.
eagerness, it needs to be addressed a tiny bit.
Yeah, I understand. I understand. So the second most loved country is Philippines. You went there, but you didn't visit Pakistan. That is a personal thing that you haven't done. So yeah, when
So
are you coming to Pakistan?
I know if I went to Pakistan, A, I would have a good time, and B, the people would welcome me, and it would be
Yeah.
fantastic. But from a culture standpoint, I chose to invest more in the Philippines than I did in Pakistan, and I'm making my home base there. That's not going to
Yeah,
change.
yeah,
And I can't make two home bases. I got to pick one, right? And I
yeah.
got to be honest
Yeah, I
about it. I
understand.
got to be transparent.
Yeah,
I think that there are many people who will make their home base in Pakistan and outcompete, and beat me in that region. I feel like the Filipino culture is easier for me to personally integrate with the
yeah,
American culture.
yeah,
And it was just a business decision, simply put.
yeah, yeah.
And I'm having good results and I'm happy with them.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. So if we have to rate it, so most number of employees are from Philippines and then from Pakistan, or do you hire from India as well? And then Eastern Europe,
I have
can you give me a
zero.
breakdown? Yeah.
Yeah, I have zero in India. I have hired 2 or 3 over the last 6 years out of India, but zero currently. I believe our Pakistan number is down to 6 at my Amazon guy. And
Okay.
out of the Philippines, we have more than 400. And then the rest of the 100 is primarily North American based, about 50 in the States, maybe 20 or so in Mexico, a couple in Canada. And then we have some random European and South American countries as well.
Yeah. So Pakistanis have dropped drastically. Like what happened there? Like I'm curious. You can choose not to answer it, but I would like an answer.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I basically forced our recruitment team to focus on the Philippines. That's what happened.
Yeah.
And I wanted to be able to have a single based culture unit. So there's a lot of people that want to talk about having a diverse group of people being really important or really valuable. And my position is that having a merit based culture organization that has a harmonious culture is easier to integrate and faster and typically has bigger and better results. And so I think that international companies will typically need to pick one identity and go
Yeah.
all in on it. And so, for example, EST time zone, right? We're an EST
Yeah.
based company. We can't be a multi time zone company because then when do meetings occur? When do we meet with them? What do our customers want, first of all? And that can be quite challenging, right? And so because of the positions that we've taken, we have an extraordinarily diverse set of experiences from all over the world. But when it comes
Yep.
to identity and culture and
Yeah.
picking that,
Yeah.
right,
I understand. I understand.
there can only be one set to attract, and
Yeah. Yeah.
anything that you do that retracts from that will make it harder to move forward, from my experience.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, makes a lot of sense. So I do have another question, and that's kind of a personal question as well. You
Sure.
did bought a Lamborghini there, so what was the story behind it? Are you a car guy, or what happened? Like, did you get a good deal out of it, or one day you just woke
So,
up and chose violence? Like, what happened there?
all right. So I went to lunch with a bunch of marketing agency owners, and I was driving in with my Mazda, and they were all driving Lambos. And
Okay, okay.
I said, why did you buy a Lambo? And they're like, because it
Yeah.
led to more business. And that was a
Oh.
magical moment for me. I was like, wait a minute, if I buy a Lambo, I'm going to get more business. And they're like, yes, you'll understand. So I did. I got a Lambo, and the first stop, the first place I took it was to the UPS store to drop off an Amazon package to FBA. I walk into the store, and the UPS guy says, do you sell on Amazon? And I said, yes. And he says, can I buy your course? He didn't know who I was. He just saw the Lambo, right? And so that was why I did it. Now, I'm not a car guy. The Lambo, actually, I took it in for a brake job, and it got totaled. The insurance paid out. I didn't actually like the Lambo that much, so I picked up an R8, Audi R8, and that's what I drive today.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
way more comfortable. It's basically
R8 is a good car. Yeah.
basically a luxury, more comfortable version of a Lambo, essentially. So I got the 2023 version. It's the last gas engine that Audi's going to make, which is a huge mistake. They shouldn't be going electrics. I think it's a very, very bad mistake for them to do. And in any case, it just has led to some conversations. It gets brought up on podcasts. People talk about it.
Yeah.
It makes good photo ops. And if I'm being honest with myself, driving fast is sometimes fun.
Yeah. Yeah. So I actually have a friend who has an R8, and he would love that story. So to know that you also have an R8, so awesome. There, and yeah, Lamborghini is a very, it's kind of a unique car. It's not that good, but it's at the point where everyone is very much in love with it. I actually shifted to Dubai, and then I saw so many Lambos that I kind of got sick of it. But yeah, personally, I think the Cadillac is better. But yeah, like I can't even say anything because in Dubai I have seen so many things. Like, I didn't even know that there is a two doors Rolls and Royce. I was disappointed in myself that I didn't even know.
Yeah,
How poor am I?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a car guy, and I probably never will be. I got it for a little bit of fun. I drove a 2008 Mazda 3 up until 2 years ago, right? Like, I don't care about status. I really don't. I don't care what people think about me, which is why I end up making mistakes publicly frequently. But I do enjoy the benefits that it has provided, and it has paid for itself. And so from a business investment standpoint, it was kind of a no-brainer.
Yeah, no. Basically, what they say is that the best car is a paid-off car. So that's the best thing, because you don't have to keep thinking about it. And obviously, if something is bringing in more business, like there was a senior in my company who used to say, spend money to make money. So if you spend money to make money, and if you did sell a course, so that was the money's well spent there. So that was pretty great. So. Philippines, and then you are a totally remote company with 500 employees. I still need to wrap my head around it, because if 70 people are reporting to you, when do you go to sleep, or how does your day look like? Do you have any hobbies or?
Yeah. So this will surprise you, but I'm an 8-hour sleep guy. I have to get my 8 hours of sleep in. Now, while I'm awake, I happen to type 108 words per minute on average. And so I'm able to shout a bunch of orders. And because I have high drive, and because I'm a visionary, the ideas just come to me. So one of the weird things that I sometimes talk about is that when I first wake up in the day, whatever first thought I have, I always take action on it. So for example, today my thought was, I better go get that blood test. So I went and did. I got the blood test today. You can see little 2 red marks there on my elbow, and just checking in with my health. And that's what I focused on today. But every day that I wake up, that first thought is always my best thought of the day, and it never ever fails me. Whether it's to call a certain person, whether it's to go build a certain system or call a client, whatever it might be, I always act on that first thought. I am a dreamer. I'm a visionary. I very much love driving behavior. When I was in college, I was in the college debate circuit. I debated Harvard. I beat Harvard's second best team, their B team, at a national tournament. But I got to tell you, none of that matters if you can't convince people to change their behavior. So I decided that I spent like the last 6 years of my life trying to master the art of persuasion. I don't think I'm very much better than I was 6 years ago. However, good enough to run a 500-person organization, apparently. You have to be able to attract like-minded people and to be able to make them the better versions of themselves. And I'll give you one example. So John Aspinall, he was one of our more prolific influencers on LinkedIn and other platforms. He was not an influencer before he joined my Amazon guy. I created him in a sense. I taught him how to do it. He now took a job with PickFu, and now he's an influencer for them. And I'm very happy with my investment there. That's what happens when you're a teacher. Sometimes your pupils graduate. Sometimes your pupils become better than you, just like Bruce Lee taught his own posterity, right? We led down to Jackie Chan, right? There are layers of impact here. And I am so happy for people that participate in that I'm able to join their journey for a time period. And then they go off and sprout and become the best versions of themselves. Because if you don't do that and they stay at your company sucks, right? Like your people, like your company is garbage. And so the risk is that some of the people you invest in will move on, but it's better for everybody involved. It's better for you. It's better for them. It's better for your customer.
Yeah, sometimes I say is that, if the kids that you have, they don't, graduate, then, it means you are a bad teacher. So,
Exactly.
And also another thing is that there comes a time in everybody's life where your teacher, you start to look at your teacher and you are like, this guy has some screws loose. That's when you know that you need to move on, and because you cannot be the smartest person in the room, so you need to keep moving that up. So
it's also really hard to hire smart people and manage them because they don't listen to you.
Yeah. That's a good one. Difficult. So with that being said, that is going to be my next question, is that how do you find people smarter than you? Because not a lot of people are running a 500 people company.
I don't know how to answer that question, to be terribly honest, but I'm going to try. So what I do is I live by 3 rules. All right. So we got the silver rule, the gold rule, and the platinum rule. And I'll walk you through these. So the silver rule is to treat the lessers in the world how you would prefer the greaters would treat you. So for example, if we talked about a country and one country is going to treat a lesser powerful country the way that they hope the stronger country would treat them. That's the silver rule, right? The golden rule is treat others how you want to be treated. And then the platinum rule is treat others how they want to be treated. And so you have to transverse these rules in the appropriate fashion when it's appropriate. And if you don't get up to the platinum rule eventually, then you cannot attract people that are smarter than you. Because the people that are smarter than you don't want to be treated the way you want to be treated, a la golden rule. They don't. So you have to understand how to put yourself in their shoes and learn what drives and helps them.
The platinum rule is really, really profound. Like, that was a really good one. Yeah, I liked it. So my final question would be, and I hope to, close I don't want to close the podcast, but this is going to be my last question to, keep them.
Gotta end somewhere. Right?
Check. Yeah. So the question is, how did, when you started out, my Amazon guy, how was the lead generation process then, and how it has changed up until now? Because 2024, I think everything is in shambles and we are actually in World War. But how it has changed, there has been a drastic shift in lead generation in itself.
So if you could allow me to screen share, I'll demonstrate this visually for you. And sure. This is at myguy.agency/case, and I'll put the URL in the chat if you want to put it in the show notes. But basically, started April 2nd, 2018. That's when I got my first client signed and kind of the genesis of the company. Drove $361,000 in 2018 in those first 8 months, I guess that'd be. And so, I had, just a handful of employees, 10 clients, et cetera. And then as time went on, now we hit 2023, 20 million ARR, 420 clients, 450 employees. Now we're at 500 in 2024. I need to update the graphic. And so if we scroll down to this section right here, this is very much Alex Hormozy's 2x2 card that I've reflected on deeply. And essentially, there are 4 ways to acquire leads. So the red ones are people the blue ones are strangers. And the top left quad is the easiest one to start with, and it's the cheapest because it's one-to-one and they're warm. You know them. Basically referrals, or you just calling up somebody that you know and saying, hey, you want to buy? And then that got me to $1 million. Content is what got me to $10 million. There's a lot of this. This is a bigger vehicle. Speaking of vehicles, there's the Lambo. And this allows you to reach a lot of people. And I had 0 outbound sales until January of 2022, right? So it's basically just over 2 years I've had outbound sales. So what got me to 2022 and getting up to 20 million from that 10 million mark is when I started cold outreach. And this lead gen included sending emails, cold calling, and I hired 20 people for my outbound sales team. I don't talk a lot about this process publicly because it is the one trade secret that I like to die with. And it's the most important trade secret that I possess. But having said that, it is lucrative. Running paid ads is the 4th quad. And this is how I plan to get to 50 million. It is the most expensive, has the lowest ROI. However, we're getting somewhere between 8 and 11x so far. Data is still new and fresh, and we're not sure how that's going to pan out. But that gives you kind of an idea. If this is the lowest ROI and that's between 8 and 11, you can work the math backwards to figure out how the other ones might be doing for me. So long story short, I use this quad. This is how lead gen has changed over time. I think cold calling is super underrated today. I think email is harder today than it ever has been. And I also think that a lot of people have figured out how to add value prior to engaging with an Amazon business. And so it's harder for us to acquire the customer in 2024 than previously. Having said that, for everyone that meets with me, I have a 26% conversion rate from time of meeting to sending a contract. So basically 1 out of 4 people will sign up with me once we meet with them.
I would like that trade secret now. Like that 36% is really good. It's actually I think that's the gold one. So Steven, my next question I should be closing it up by my next question would be, how would you rate the Amazon conferences that happen? Like I think there are like 20 Amazon conferences that happen in US alone, like every year. So how would you rate them?
Yeah, I really think conferences are overrated. and I don't think you need to go to a conference to learn how to sell on Amazon. But I do think the value of conferences for me comes from meeting people in person and networking. But for other agencies, I think you should ignore other agencies, completely ignore them. Just ask your customers, what do you want? Give it to them, ask and confirm it's what they wanted. And I honestly think that's plenty. That's what I did. I went down in my basement and I built this business up to $20 million answering that question. What customers, give customers what they want. Now, having said that, I do put on a digital conference through Maximizing E-commerce. I purchased that from Kevin Sanderson. And we typically do have 5 speakers from MAG, from my Amazon guy that goes to the Maximize E-commerce. And then we invite about 10 or 15 other guest speakers as well. And 3 of those 4 conferences during the year are specifically on paid ads. So, and the tickets are also super affordable. So if I can give a plug for that, it's the Maximizing E-commerce MAG Summits. Highly recommend them. I think digital summits are the way to go if you want to learn expertise and hear what's new and latest and cutting edge. But a lot of time, gurus will post all of their stuff for free on YouTube. I do. However, it's a lot to go through. And it's sometimes, how do you tell the good from the bad? And that's for you to judge.
Yeah. So if I understand it correctly, there is My Amazon Guy Institute, and then there is conferences, and digital conferences and then agency. Do you have anything else?
So the My Amazon Guy Institute, as you referenced, is mag school, mag-school.com.
Yeah.
And then yes, I launch new things all the time. My flywheel is very large. So I launched my agency guy, which the website URL is a little unique. It's myguy.agency. Myagencyguy.com was taken. And so I built that to service other agencies. I have SOPs that are specific to agencies at that URL. I sell all of these things I ever do: trademarks, SOPs, tutorials, do-it-yourself, certificates, and full service. So I have a very large flywheel. My mantra: never lose a customer.
Awesome. So I think I'm gonna wrap it up from here.
Keyword, by the way.
Yeah, I'm gonna wrap it up here. But yeah, it was very nice. Like, I don't want to end it, but yeah, I have to. I hope to see you again, pretty soon. I'm pretty sure I'm gonna have to do a second one, second episode for this one. Do you have any closing remarks?
My favorite business book I've ever read is The Road Less Stupid. Nobody talks about that book. It is amazing. It helps you understand how to prevent bad decisions by simply thinking. My biggest mistake I've ever made was a $2 million investment into the SaaS world. I tried to become a tech-empowered agency, and I wish I had that $2 million back. I could buy a couple more Lambos.
Can you talk about this? I cannot end it before I hear it. Yeah, so please.
I tried to recreate Asana, Helium 10's keyword tracking, a PPC automation software, Time Doctor, and some other small things we'll pepper in. At the end of the day, when we were ready to launch and I started doing user testing, everybody hated it. Nobody said the raw platforms were better than what we built. And I said, then why the hell did we try and launch this? And it was a mistake. So I did that all kind of behind the scenes. It was called Hybrid. I was really excited about it. I was going to sell it to other agencies. It just simply wasn't good enough. And so the lesson here is stick to what you know, right? Just like if you're trying to figure out what product to launch on Amazon, if you're not a dentist, you shouldn't sell dental hygiene kits. If you're not a chemist, you probably shouldn't sell supplements, or maybe you're into whatever it is. You got to understand the product. So I was a chess player growing up. I played in all of the U.S. chess circuits and the national tournaments. I understand everything there is to know about chess. If I went and sold chess sets, I would have a huge edge over the next guy. But I definitely don't know anything about dental hygiene. I shouldn't be selling bamboo dental floss.
So if I understand it correctly, you had a Lambo, you still have a fast car, you are bald, you used to play chess. Are you Andrew Tate?
Am I what?
Andrew Tate. The Tate brothers.
Oh.
The guy from Romania.
Yeah, so I'm familiar with him, but I wouldn't say I've consumed much of his content. But I guess I could be lumped in based on your diagnosis here.
Yeah. So it was really nice talking to you, Steven. Really, really thank you so much for coming on the podcast. So yeah, that was it.